She didn't even slow down when her heel struck the old black woman's leg. The impact sharp, deliberate, cruel, sending the frail body crashing onto the cold marble floor of the luxury mall as shoppers gasped and froze. Because the girl knew power when she wore it and believed beauty and a corporate badge made her untouchable. So she spat insults instead of apologies, laughed instead of helping, and walked away with her head high, never noticing the silent cameras above her, never hearing the old woman's calm whisper, "Power borrowed always expires," and never imagining that the trembling hands she kicked belonged to the mother of Jah Kong, the unseen king who owned the mall, the company on her badge, the city's shadows, and who, at that very moment, was watching the footage in absolute silence, already deciding how slowly pride should learn to bleed without a single drop of blood. Neria Blake walked through the Crystal Crown Mall as if the polished marble belonged to her feet alone. Every step clicked with authority, her heels striking the floor in a rhythm that announced her presence before anyone dared to look up. She wore confidence the way other women wore perfume, thick, expensive, impossible to ignore. Her hair was flawless, her suit tailored to precision, her company badge swinging lightly against her chest like a medal of honor. People moved aside instinctively. They always did. At 27, Neria worked for Kong Global Holdings, the most powerful corporation in the city. To say you worked there was to say you had arrived. To say you worked close to the executive floor, as Neria did, was to place yourself above ordinary mortals. She had climbed fast, stepped on faster, and learned early that softness was a weakness the world punished. Today, she was in a hurry. A private lunch, a potential promotion, a future that glittered brighter than the chandeliers above her head. The mall buzzed with quiet luxury, low music, muted conversations, the soft rustle of designer bags. Security guards stood at discreet corners, eyes alert but relaxed. This was not a place for mistakes, and certainly not a place for people who did not belong. That was when the collision happened. It was small, almost nothing. An old black woman, bent slightly at the back, carrying a worn handbag, stepped sideways at the wrong moment. Her shoulder brushed Neria's arm. The contact was light, accidental, but to Neria, it felt like an insult. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Neria snapped, her voice slicing through the air. The mall seemed to inhale. The old woman turned slowly, confusion clouding her tired eyes. Her clothes were simple, faded, clean but old. She looked like someone who had lived many lives and chosen silence over noise. "I'm sorry, my dear," she said gently. "I didn't see you." "Sorry." The word irritated Neria more than the collision. "Didn't see me?" Neria laughed sharply, drawing attention. "Are you blind or just stupid?" A few heads turned. No one spoke. The old woman's lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. She tried to step aside, to move out of Neria's way, but her foot caught awkwardly on the edge of the carpet runner. She stumbled. Neria reacted not with concern, but with disgust. "Watch where you're going," she hissed, stepping forward impatiently. The old woman lost her balance completely and fell, her body hitting the marble floor with a dull, painful sound. Her handbag spilled open, its contents scattering. Cheap reading glasses, a folded handkerchief, an old phone with a cracked screen. A gasp rippled through the nearby shoppers. For a brief moment, just one, there was silence. Then the old woman tried to push herself up, her hands trembling as she struggled against the smooth floor. That was when Neria did it. With a sharp motion fueled by irritation and pride, she lifted her foot and kicked the old woman's leg aside, not hard enough to break bone, but cruel enough to humiliate. The movement was deliberate, dismissive, final. "Get out of my way," Neria said coldly. "People like you shouldn't be here." The words hit harder than the kick. The old woman froze. Around them, people watched, men in suits, women with perfect makeup, security guards who suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. No one intervened. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to be remembered. The old woman slowly lifted her face. Her eyes were dark, deep, and strangely calm. There was pain there, yes, but no anger, no tears, just something heavier, something ancient. She looked at Neria the way a judge looks at a verdict already decided. "My child," she said softly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Power borrowed is the loudest power." Neria scoffed. "Save your wisdom for someone who cares," she snapped. "And clean yourself up before security throws you out." She turned on her heel and walked away, her stride confident, victorious, unbothered. The crowd slowly dispersed, relief replacing discomfort. The mall returned to its polished calm. Behind her, the old woman remained on the floor for a moment longer than necessary. Then, with quiet dignity, she gathered her belongings and stood. No one noticed the black luxury SUV parked across the street. No one noticed the man inside it, tall and still, his face carved from restraint and shadow. No one noticed the tablet in his hand, paused on a security feed replaying the scene from above. The kick, the words, the laugh. The man's jaw tightened. Jah Kong did not blink. Inside the vehicle, the air felt heavier, charged with something dangerous. He replayed the footage once more, slower this time. He watched the way the young woman's face twisted with contempt, the way his mother fell, the way the world looked away. "Stop the car," he said quietly. The driver obeyed instantly. Jah Kong stepped out, adjusting his coat, his presence commanding even without a word. He did not rush to his mother. He did not shout. He simply watched as she walked toward him, her steps slow but unbroken. "You're late," she said gently when she reached him. "I'm on time," he replied, his voice low. "I saw everything." She smiled faintly. "Then you know why I didn't call you." "Yes," he said. "And you know why I won't forget." She placed a hand on his arm. "Do not stain your hands for me, Jah." He looked down at her bruised wrist, at the faint mark left by humiliation rather than force. "Some stains," he said softly, "are necessary." Across the street, high above the city, cameras continued to record. And somewhere inside Crystal Crown Mall, Neria Blake laughed into her phone, bragging about her day, unaware that her life had just split into a before and an after, unaware that she had kicked the wrong woman, unaware that borrowed power had an owner, and he had just noticed her. The city never slept, but there were moments when it held its breath. Night wrapped itself around the Kong estate like a vow of silence. High walls, iron gates, and unseen guards protected the land, but none of it mattered to the woman who stepped out of the black SUV. Madame Kong walked slowly, her steps measured, her posture calm despite the dull ache spreading through her leg. She had known pain before. This was not the kind that bent a soul. Jah Kong walked beside her, close enough that his shadow covered hers. Inside the house, warmth replaced the cold marble of the mall. Soft lights glowed. The scent of herbal tea filled the air. This was not the home of a monster, despite what the city whispered. It was the home of a son who had learned cruelty from the world and restraint from his mother. Madame Kong lowered herself onto a couch. Only then did the exhaustion show. John knelt in front of her without hesitation, his expensive suit creasing against the floor. He took her foot gently, inspecting the swelling with a precision that had terrified men twice his size. "You should have called me," he said quietly. "And have you turned the mall into a graveyard?" she replied, her voice soft but firm. His jaw tightened. "She kicked you." "She kicked an old woman," Madame Kong corrected. "That is different." Jah looked up, his eyes dark. "It is not." She reached out and touched his face, her fingers warm against the cold fury beneath his skin. "Jah," she said, using the name only she was allowed to speak without fear. "I did not raise you to answer every insult with blood." "No," he said slowly. "You raised me to answer injustice with truth." A faint smile touched her lips. "Then be careful what truth you choose." He stood and turned away, walking toward the wide glass windows that overlooked the city. From here, the skyline bowed. Lights flickered like obedient stars. Somewhere in that maze of concrete and ambition was the girl who had laughed as his mother lay on the floor. "She works for me," Jah said, more to himself than to her. Madame Kong was silent. She wears my company's badge, he continued. She walks through my buildings. She spends money that flows from my hands. Still, his mother said nothing. Jah's fingers curled slowly into a fist. And she believes she is powerful. Madame Kong finally spoke. Power that does not recognize humanity is already dead. He turned back to her. Then let me bury it. She studied him for a long moment, seeing not the feared mafia boss, not the corporate emperor, but the boy who had once hidden behind her legs when gunshots echoed through the night. No killing, she said calmly. Jah nodded once. I promise. That promise was far more terrifying than violence. Across the city, Neria Blake stood in front of her bathroom mirror, removing her earrings with careless grace. She replayed the day in her mind, laughing softly as she remembered the old woman's shocked expression. Some people, she muttered, don't know their place. Her phone buzzed with messages, friends praising her outfit, co-workers joking about weekend plans. She smiled, basking in the comfort of belonging at the top. She did not notice the email that arrived quietly in her inbox. From Executive Affairs. Subject, Internal Review, Employee Profile. She ignored it. Back at the Kong estate, Jah sat alone in his private study. The room was lined with books he rarely read and screens he watched constantly. With a single gesture, the lights dimmed and the largest screen came alive. Neria Blake's face filled the room. Her employment history scrolled beside it. Prestigious schools, strategic promotions, a talent for aligning herself with powerful people, a pattern of complaints. Dismissed, buried, silenced. Jah's expression never changed. Bring me everything, he said into the air. The system obeyed. CCTV footage from the mall, audio enhancement, social media activity, private messages, bank records, psychological profile. She confuses access with ownership, Jah murmured. One of his advisors appeared on a side screen. Should we proceed with termination, sir? No, Jah replied calmly. Not yet. What is your intention? Jah leaned back, folding his hands. Correction. The advisor hesitated. Public or private? Jah's eyes flicked to the paused image of his mother on the floor. Public enough to be remembered. Private enough to be permanent. The advisor nodded and disappeared. The next morning, Madame Kong sat in the garden, sunlight filtering through the leaves. She moved slowly, but her spirit was steady. A young maid approached, concern written on her face. Madam, are you hurt badly? Madame Kong smiled. No, child. Only reminded. Of what? That the world forgets its elders when it worships speed. The maid lowered her head respectfully. Madame Kong looked toward the city again. She is not evil, she said softly, as if speaking to the wind. She is loud. Jah stood behind her, listening. Do not destroy her completely, Madame Kong added. Let her live long enough to understand. Jah closed his eyes briefly. Understanding can be more painful than death. That is why it works, she replied. At Kong Global Holdings, the atmosphere shifted. Executives whispered. Meetings were rescheduled without explanation. Security protocols tightened. A sense of unease crept through the glass corridors like a silent warning. Neria felt it, but dismissed it. She walked into the office that morning with her usual confidence, heels sharp, chin high. People greeted her, but their smiles were thinner. Their eyes lingered too long. Her assistant approached nervously. Ms. Blake. You've been requested at the executive level. Neria's heart skipped, just once. Requested by whom? The assistant swallowed. By Mr. Jah Kong. Neria's lips curved into a triumphant smile. Finally, she thought. She straightened her jacket, already imagining the view from the top floor, unaware that the man who owned the building remembered her not by her resume, but by the sound of her heel striking his mother's leg. And as the elevator doors closed around her, carrying her upward, Jah Kong watched the numbers rise on his screen and whispered softly, "Let the lesson begin." By the time Neria Blake stepped out of the elevator onto the 32nd floor of Kong Global Holdings, the building already knew her mood. Confident, untouchable, victorious. Her heels struck the marble tiles with practiced authority, echoing down the corridor like punctuation marks at the end of other people's sentences. Assistants straightened. Junior staff lowered their voices. Conversations paused, then resumed only after she passed. Neria liked it that way. She liked the fear mixed with admiration, the way people measured their words around her. It reminded her how far she had climbed, and how far above everyone else she now stood. Her office sat near the glass wall overlooking the city, a privilege few earned at her level. She dropped her designer bag on the desk and glanced at her reflection in the window. Perfect, powerful, unbothered. Her phone buzzed. A message from a colleague. "You were wild yesterday," faced with tears of joy that old woman didn't know who she messed with. Neria smirked and typed back. Some people need to learn their place. She tossed the phone aside and powered on her computer. Emails flooded in. Meeting requests. Project updates. Praise wrapped in professional language. Everything was normal. Exactly as it should be. Yet something in the air felt different. She noticed it when her assistant, Lila, approached her desk more cautiously than usual. "Good morning, Miss Blake," Lila said, her voice polite but tight. "Morning," Neria replied without looking up. "Where's the report I asked for?" It's ready," Lila said quickly, placing the folder down. "Also, there's been a schedule change." Neria finally looked up. "What kind of change?" Lila hesitated. "There's a private executive meeting this afternoon. You've been included." Neria's eyebrow lifted slightly. Included. That word mattered. "By who?" she asked calmly. Lila swallowed. "By Mr. Jah Kong." For a fraction of a second, a blink so fast it almost didn't exist, Neria's heart skipped. Then excitement surged in its place. Jah Kong. The name carried weight even within these walls. CEO. Founder. Phantom. Some employees had worked here for years without ever seeing him in person. Decisions came from above like divine commands, unquestioned and final. And now he wanted to see her. "Of course he does," Neria said lightly, waving a dismissive hand. "Anything else?" Lila shook her head. "No, ma'am." As the assistant walked away, Neria leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her lips. She had known this day would come. Talent always rose. Beauty always opened doors. And ambition, well, ambition demanded recognition. Her mind drifted briefly to the mall incident, but only as a joke. The old woman's face flickered in her thoughts, then vanished just as quickly. Irrelevant. Neria stood and walked into the conference room for the morning briefing. The room filled quickly, but the energy shifted the moment she entered. Chairs adjusted. Voices softened. She took her seat at the head of the table, legs crossed, posture flawless. "Let's begin," she said. As she spoke, confident, articulate, commanding. She failed to notice the discreet camera mounted in the corner of the room, its small red light blinking softly. Far above her, on the top floor, Jah Kong watched. He stood behind a wall of glass, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the live feed. Neria's image filled the screen, her smile, her gestures, the way she spoke over others without apology. "She enjoys being seen," one of his advisors said quietly. "Yes," Jah replied. "She mistakes visibility for importance." The advisor hesitated. "She's effective, profitable. So is fire," Jah said calmly. "Until it spreads." He tapped the screen once, freezing the image on Neria's laughing face. "That confidence," Jah continued, "is built on borrowed ground." Back in the conference room, Neria wrapped up the meeting to scattered applause. As people filed out, a coworker leaned toward her. "Big things coming, huh?" Neria smiled knowingly. "They always do." She returned to her office and began preparing for the executive meeting. She chose her outfit carefully. Nothing too aggressive, nothing too soft. Power dressed as elegance. As she adjusted her jacket, her computer chimed. A new email. From Executive Affairs. Subject, confirmation, private executive session. Her smile widened. She didn't read the fine print. The elevator ride to the executive level felt longer than usual. The numbers climbed steadily, each floor a reminder of how high she was going. Neria checked her reflection in the mirrored walls, smoothing imaginary creases, lifting her chin. This was it. The doors opened onto silence. The executive floor was different, quieter, colder, heavier. The carpet absorbed sound. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and control. A receptionist nodded respectfully and gestured down the hall. Mr. Kong will see you shortly. Neria walked forward, heart steady, confidence intact. Inside the office, Jah Kong stood with his back to her, gazing out at the city below. The skyline bowed beneath him, unaware it was being judged. "Ms. Blake," he said without turning. His voice was calm, deep, controlled. "Do you know why you're here?" Neria smiled. "I assume this is about my performance." Jah turned slowly. For the first time, she truly looked at him. Tall, immaculate, dangerous in a way that didn't need to announce itself. His eyes were dark and unreadable, like doors that never opened fully. "Yes," he said, "your performance." He gestured toward a chair. "Sit." She did. Jah tapped a remote on his desk. The screen behind him lit up, not with charts or profits, but with a paused video frame. A luxury mall. A familiar angle. Neria frowned slightly. "Is there a problem?" Jah's eyes never left hers. "Tell me," he said softly, "what do you believe power is?" Neria didn't hesitate. Power is influence, control, being above consequences. A faint smile touched Jah's lips, but it held no warmth. "Interesting," he said. He pressed play. The footage began, and as Neria watched herself on the screen, heard her own voice, saw her own heel lift, saw the old woman fall, something unfamiliar crept into her chest. Not guilt, but unease. She laughed nervously. That was nothing. Just some old woman who... Jah raised a hand. The video froze on the exact moment her foot made contact. "That old woman," he said quietly, "is my mother." The room went silent. Neria's smile cracked. Not completely, but enough. And in that crack, the first shadow of fear finally found a way in. The silence that followed Jah Kong's words was not empty. It was crushing. Neria Blake felt it press against her chest, tightening her breath, slowing her thoughts. The screen behind Jah Kong still glowed, frozen on the image of her heel striking the old woman's leg. Her leg. His mother. That's not possible," Neria said finally, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle even to her own ears. "You're joking." Jah Kong did not move. He stood there, hands resting lightly on the edge of his desk, posture relaxed, eyes fixed on her as if she were a specimen under glass. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He didn't need to. "My mother," he said again, calmly, "raised me to recognize lies." That was one. Neria swallowed. Her confidence tried to resurface. Years of training, of surviving corporate wars, of smiling through pressure. "Sir, if this is about an incident at the mall, I'm sure it's been exaggerated. I didn't know who she was. I mean, how could I?" "That," Jah said softly, "is precisely the problem." He pressed another button on the remote. The screen changed. Now it showed documents, her employment file, her salary history, internal complaints she had never known existed, emails she had sent late at night, careless, arrogant, messages mocking coworkers, a video clip of her berating a junior staff member months ago. Neria's mouth went dry. "You see," Jah continued, walking slowly around the desk, "I don't punish accidents. I correct patterns." He stopped in front of her. "You didn't kick my mother because you were angry," he said. "You kicked her because you believed she was beneath you." "That's not true," Neria said quickly, standing up. "I was stressed. I was late. I didn't mean." Jah raised a finger. She stopped mid-sentence. "Sit," he said quietly. Her legs obeyed before her pride could object. Jah returned to his seat and folded his hands. "Tell me, Ms. Blake," he said, "what do you think your badge represents?" Neria hesitated. "Achievement." "Wrong." He leaned forward slightly. "It represents access. Borrowed access." He tapped the desk once. The sound echoed like a gavel. You walk through my buildings. You earn money from my systems. You speak with authority because my name stands behind you. And yet, you believe that power belonged to you. Neria's pulse hammered in her ears. I worked hard to get here, she said, her voice shaking now. You deserve nothing, Jah interrupted, still calm. You earn, and today you lose. He pressed another button. Her phone buzzed violently on the desk. Once, twice, again. She glanced down. Bank alert. Account temporarily restricted. HR notification. Immediate suspension pending review. Security access. Revoked. Neria shot to her feet. You can't do this. Jah looked at her with mild curiosity. I just did. This is abuse of power, she shouted. I'll sue. I'll go public. The board. The board answers to me, Jah said, unfazed. The media answers to money. And your lawyers, he paused, glancing at another screen, just dropped you. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the back of the chair for support. Please, she said, the word tearing itself from her throat before she could stop it. I didn't know. If I had known. If you had known she was important, Jah finished, you would have behaved differently. He stood. And that, he said coldly, is why this lesson is necessary. He walked toward the window, turning his back to her. Below them, the city pulsed, cars moving, people rushing, lives colliding and separating without care. My mother walks without guards, Jah said. She dresses simply. She speaks softly. She does this to see the truth of people. He turned back slowly. You showed her yours. Neria's tears finally spilled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'll apologize. I'll beg her. I'll do anything. Jah's expression hardened, not with anger, but with disappointment. Apologies given after power is revealed are meaningless, he said. You didn't regret your action. You regret its consequence. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because she knew it was true, Jah returned to his desk and picked up a thin folder. He slid it across to her. Inside, he said, is your termination letter. Effective immediately. Your non-disclosure agreement has been expanded. You will not speak about this meeting. Neria stared at the folder as if it might explode. What happens to me? She asked, her voice barely audible. Jah considered her for a moment. That, he said, depends on what you do next. Security appeared at the door, silent and imposing. Escort Ms. Blake out, Jah instructed. As the guards approached, Neria's composure shattered completely. You're ruining my life, she cried. Over one mistake. Jah met her gaze one last time. No, he said evenly. Your life was built on many. This was simply the one you committed in public. The guards led her toward the door. Just before she crossed the threshold, Jah spoke again. Ms. Blake. She turned, hope flickering weakly in her eyes. My mother asked me not to destroy you, he said. So I won't. Her shoulders sagged in relief. But understand this, he continued. What remains after today will be entirely yours to carry. The door closed behind her. The office fell silent once more. Jah Kong stood alone, staring at the darkened screen where the image of his mother had once frozen in time. Correction, he murmured. And somewhere below, Neria Blake stepped out of the building she once ruled, badge dead, accounts frozen, name already beginning to rot, finally realizing that the trap had never been the meeting. It had been her pride. By the time Neria Blake reached the street, the world no longer recognized her. The glass doors of Kong Global Holdings slid shut behind her with a soft, final hiss, sealing off the life she had built brick by brick on borrowed power. For a moment, she stood there, clutching her handbag like a lifeline, staring at her reflection in the polished surface, still beautiful, still well-dressed, still breathing. But something essential had been stripped away. People passed her without slowing. No one moved aside anymore. Her phone vibrated again. And again. She snatched it up, desperate for reassurance, for proof that this was a nightmare she could wake from. Bank alert. Account access denied. Credit notification. Card declined. Legal update. Representation withdrawn. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled. Messages she had sent earlier, confident, smug, now sat unanswered. Group chats went silent the moment she typed. A friend she'd known for years left her message on read. Neria laughed weakly. "This is temporary," she whispered to no one. "This is just a misunderstanding." She hailed a cab. The driver glanced at her destination and frowned. "Cash or card?" "Card," Neria said automatically. The driver tried the machine. It beeped red. "Cash," he repeated, less patient now. Neria checked her wallet. Nothing. Not even a forgotten bill. The driver's eyes hardened. "I can't take you." She stepped back onto the sidewalk, humiliation burning hotter than anger. The city moved on around her, horns blaring, footsteps pounding, laughter spilling from cafes. Life did not pause for fallen queens. At home, the doorman avoided her eyes. "Ms. Blake," he said awkwardly. "Management asked me to inform you. Your lease has been terminated. Effective immediately." Her breath caught. "That's not possible. I pay 6 months in advance." "They've been notified," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." She went upstairs anyway, hands shaking as she packed whatever she could carry. Designer dresses, shoes she had worn once, jewelry that suddenly felt heavy and useless. When she returned downstairs, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a notification. It was the news. A headline flashed across her screen. Kong global executive terminated over elder abuse allegations. Her picture stared back at her. Perfectly captured, perfectly cruel. The article was brutal. Words like arrogant, entitled, inhumane leapt off the screen. Comments flooded in by the hundreds. Disgusting. Fire her for good. That old woman could be anyone's mother. Neria dropped the phone. She wandered the streets that night, dragging her suitcase behind her like a ghost of her former self. Every luxury store window reflected what she had lost. Every passerby felt like a witness. By morning, she found herself in a cheap motel on the edge of the city. The room smelled of damp carpet and broken dreams. She sat on the bed and stared at the wall, her mind replaying the mall scene over and over. The kick, the laughter, the calm voice. Power borrowed is the loudest power. For the first time, the words hurt. Days passed, then weeks. Neria applied everywhere. Corporate firms, startups, even positions far below what she once commanded. No one called back. Those who did ended conversations abruptly once they recognized her name. Her savings evaporated. Her clothes were sold. Her pride followed. She moved into a cramped apartment with peeling paint and a single window that faced a brick wall. She learned the weight of silence. The kind that comes when no one needs you. One afternoon, as she stood in line at a convenience store counting coins, she felt it. A presence. She turned. The old black woman stood near the entrance, leaning lightly on a cane. Madame Kong. The world tilted. Neria's knees buckled as if struck. She dropped the coins and rushed forward, falling to her knees on the dirty floor. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, words spilling out raw and unfiltered. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Please. Please forgive me." The store fell quiet. Madame Kong looked down at her, her expression unreadable. She did not step back. She did not reach out. "Stand up," she said gently. Neria obeyed, shame burning through every vein. "I've lost everything," Neria whispered. "My job, my friends, my life." Madame Kong studied her face carefully. "No," she said softly. "You lost what you built on cruelty." Tears streamed down Neria's face. "Tell your son I'll do anything. I'll serve. I'll disappear. I'll." Madame Kong raised a hand. "My son already knows," she said. "And he is watching." Neria flinched. "I did not come here for revenge," Madame Kong continued. "I came to see if suffering taught you anything." She leaned closer. "Tell me, would you have apologized if I were still just an old woman?" Neria's lips trembled. "No," she admitted. Madame Kong nodded. "Then your punishment has only begun." She turned to leave, then paused. "Pain," she said, "is not disgrace. Refusal to learn from it is." And she was gone. That night, Neria dreamed of marble floors and falling bodies. She woke up gasping, her heart pounding, her sheets soaked with sweat. The next morning, a letter slid under her door. No return address. Inside was a single page. You will report tomorrow at 6 a.m. Location attached. We're plain clothes. No name. No phone. No excuses. At the bottom, a single signature. Jah Kong. Her hands shook as she folded the paper. This was not mercy. This was something far worse. The place was a shelter on the outskirts of the city, old, underfunded, filled with the forgotten. Elderly men and women sat quietly, waiting for time to pass them by. Neria stood at the entrance, stripped of makeup, stripped of identity, stripped of pride. A supervisor handed her a uniform. No special treatment here, the woman said flatly. You clean. You listen. You serve. Neria nodded. As she bent to scrub the floor, her back aching, her hands raw, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Good, Jah Kong said calmly. She turned, fear and shame colliding in her chest. He looked exactly as he had in his office, controlled, distant, powerful. This, he continued, gesturing around them, is disgrace without blood. He leaned closer. And it lasts as long as you need it to. Then he walked away, leaving Neria on her knees, scrubbing the floor where others had once knelt before her. Finally understanding that humiliation was not the end. It was the beginning. The shelter changed Neria Blake in ways she did not expect, and in ways she could not escape. At first, she counted the days. She woke before dawn, reported in silence, cleaned until her hands cracked and bled. She learned to keep her head down, her mouth shut, her thoughts to herself. The uniform erased her curves, her confidence, her former identity. No one here cared who she had been. No one asked. They only demanded work. The elderly residents watched her carefully at first, some with suspicion, some with quiet curiosity, a few with open resentment, because they had seen too many people like her come and go, people who believed service was charity instead of debt. Neria scrubbed floors that never stayed clean. She washed dishes stacked like monuments to neglect. She emptied bedpans, changed sheets, listened to complaints that had nowhere else to go. Her back ached constantly. Her knees throbbed. Her pride screamed louder than her muscles. But the screams grew quieter with time. There was Mr. Adebayo, who refused to eat unless someone sat with him. There was Mrs. Lin, whose hands shook so badly she spilled her tea every morning and apologized each time as if it were a crime. There was old Samuel, who told the same war story every night, afraid that if he stopped speaking, he would disappear. Neria listened. At first, it was obligation. Then it became habit. Then, something dangerous. Understanding. One evening, as she knelt to tie Mrs. Lin's shoes, the old woman placed a wrinkled hand over hers. You're different now, she said softly. Neria froze. I'm just doing my job. Mrs. Lin smiled. No, you're seeing. That night, Neria cried quietly into her pillow, not from pain, but from the weight of memory. The maul, the kick, the laughter, the certainty that she had mattered more than the woman on the floor. She did not sleep. Weeks turned into months. Jah Kong came without warning. Sometimes he stood at the back of the room, silent, watching. Other times he spoke to the supervisors, his presence bending the air around him. He never acknowledged Neria directly. Not once. That hurt more than anger would have. She wondered if this was the point, to be invisible, to feel what it meant to exist without power, without recognition, without fear protecting you. One afternoon, Neria found Madame Kong sitting in the common room, sunlight resting gently on her shoulders. The old woman's presence calmed the room without effort. Conversations softened. Movement slowed. Neria's heart pounded. She approached slowly, hands trembling. Madam, she said quietly. Madame Kong looked up. Her eyes were sharp, observant, kind, but not forgiving. Sit, she said. Neria obeyed. For a long moment, neither spoke. Do you know why this place exists? Madame Kong asked finally. For the elderly, Neria replied. For those forgotten. Madame Kong nodded. And why are they forgotten? Neria hesitated, then answered honestly. Because they no longer produce. The old woman studied her. And what did you believe your worth was? Neria swallowed. What I could take. What I could control. Madame Kong smiled faintly. Then you are learning. Tears filled Neria's eyes. I don't want forgiveness, she whispered. I want to be better. Madame Kong placed a hand on her arm. Better is not declared, she said. It is endured. She stood slowly and left without another word. That night, Neria stayed late, helping Mr. Adebayo eat his dinner. When he finished, he looked at her and said, You remind me of my daughter. She used to walk like the world owed her something. Neria smiled sadly. What happened to her? She learned, he said, and she came back. The final judgment came on a rainy morning. Neria was mopping the hallway when the supervisor approached her. You're needed in the office. Her stomach tightened. Jah Kong stood inside, dressed in black, rain clinging to his coat. He dismissed the supervisor with a glance and turned to Neria. You've been here 6 months, he said. Yes, sir. He studied her carefully. She looked thinner, quieter. Her eyes no longer searched for dominance. They searched for understanding. I offered you 2 choices, Jah continued. Service or disappearance. Neria nodded. I chose service. And if I told you to leave now, he asked. To walk away with nothing and never return? Her chest tightened. She thought of Mrs. Lin's shaking hands, of old Samuel's stories, of the way the shelter smelled like time and truth. I would leave, she said softly, but I wouldn't forget. Jah's gaze sharpened. And if I told you to stay? Indefinitely. No name, no reward, no recognition. Neria met his eyes. Then I would stay. Silence stretched between them. Jah Kong stepped closer. Do you understand what you did to my mother? Yes, Neria said. I reduced her to something less than human. And what are you now, he asked. She did not hesitate. A student. For the first time, something shifted in Jah's expression. Not mercy, not forgiveness. Respect. My mother believes you have learned enough to be released, he said. I am not convinced. Neria lowered her head. Then keep me here. Jah studied her for a long moment. Then he turned toward the door. Come. They walked outside together into the rain. Madame Kong waited beneath an umbrella, her posture calm, her eyes knowing. Jah stopped before her. She asked to stay. Madame Kong looked at Neria. Do you wish to be free? Neria hesitated, then answered the truth. I wish to be worthy. The old woman smiled. That answer, she said, is freedom. Jah exhaled slowly. Very well, he said. You are released. Neria's breath caught. Thank you. Jah raised a hand. Do not thank me. This is not a reward. He handed her a simple envelope. Inside was a modest bank card and a document. Enough to live, he said. Not enough to dominate. Neria nodded, tears streaming freely now. I understand. Jah leaned closer, his voice low. If I ever hear that you have returned to who you were. You won't, she said firmly. He straightened. Then go. Neria turned to leave, rain soaking her uniform, her steps steady. Behind her, Madame Kong spoke softly. Power that bows, she said, is power that lasts. Neria walked away, not rich, not admired, not feared, but changed. And for the first time in her life, that was enough.